Looks like we've got some kind of a problem in the fuel injection system. The fuel isn't being delivered to the engine as it should be. So, let's find the cause of the problem. Fortunately, diagnosis is the subject of the second part of our course on electronic fuel injection. With the help of Barney Bankston, our technician, we'll review the correct procedures for finding malfunctions in electronic fuel injection systems. The major points we'll cover include fuel injection system inspection, checking fuel pressure, and testing and cleaning fuel injectors. Of course, when your customer brings in a car that isn't running properly, you won't necessarily start by checking out the fuel injection system. Fuel injection system diagnosis is just one part of the good overall engine diagnosis you should do for any drivability symptom. And to be sure you're following the correct diagnosis procedures, always refer to the Engine Emissions Diagnosis Manual, Volume H. In particular, Volume H is absolutely necessary for diagnosis of the electronic engine control, or EEC system. Since the EEC system controls the fuel injection system, EEC system diagnosis is very often a part of fuel injection system diagnosis. When Volume H does direct you to check out the fuel injection system, a thorough visual inspection is a good first step. We'll use a 3-liter multi-point fuel-injected, or EFI engine, as our first example. And we'll begin in the engine compartment with the fuel delivery components. Inspect the fuel lines and connections to see that there are no leaks, that the connections are secure, and that the lines are in good condition. Make sure the fuel pressure regulator is securely mounted and undamaged. Then, pull the vacuum hose off the pressure regulator and look for signs of gasoline or contamination. There shouldn't be any gas or contamination in the regulator or hose. Of course, the fuel injection system is also an electrical system, so you'll want to check the connectors and the wiring harness. Check all of the fuel injector connectors to see that they're securely attached and that the connectors themselves aren't damaged or corroded. Do the same for the connectors at the throttle air bypass valve and the throttle position sensor. Check these last two components too for secure mountings and signs of damage. Then go on to check the fuel injection wiring harness for signs of damage or breaks in the insulation. Finally, inspect the air intake components. Check the throttle body and intake manifolds for damage, cracks, or loose attachments. Operate the throttle linkage to see that there's no sticking or binding. And don't forget to inspect the air filter. The filter must be replaced if it has any cracks or tears, or if it's dirty. Also replace the filter at scheduled maintenance intervals regardless of its appearance. Now take a moment to review the engine compartment inspection points for the fuel injection system. Study the inspection points shown. Press 1 on the controller to go on. Continue the inspection with the fuel injection system components that are under the vehicle. Inspect the fuel lines, filter, and tank for signs of leakage. Also, check the electrical connections at the in-tank pump. And if the vehicle has an inline fuel pump, make sure the fuel line fittings and electrical connections are secure. Now review the under-vehicle inspection points for the fuel injection system. Press 1 on the controller to go on. Now let's take a look at a central fuel injection system. This is a 3.8-liter high-pressure CFI engine. Most inspections for CFI systems are about the same as for multi-point systems. You have to inspect the fuel delivery, air intake, and electrical components, both in the engine compartment and under the vehicle. However, on some high-pressure CFI systems, make sure that the vacuum hoses for the heated air intake system are securely connected and in good condition. Also, you'll have to remove the air cleaner cover to check the injectors, connectors, and the fuel pressure regulator. Finally, most CFI systems have an idle speed control motor. Check this motor to see that it's securely mounted and that its electrical connection is clean and tight. Now review CFI inspections. Study each frame and press 1 to go on. That completes inspection of the fuel injection system. Remember that careful inspection is always a good beginning for fuel injection system diagnosis. To operate properly, the fuel injection system must maintain a specified operating pressure. Insufficient fuel pressure can produce symptoms ranging from no start to lack of power, depending on how low the pressure falls. So, your diagnosis of the fuel injection system will often include checking system pressure with a pressure gauge. The pressure check isn't difficult, especially on a vehicle like this one. Most EFI systems have a diagnostic Schrader valve located on the fuel rail. With the engine off, just remove the cap and connect the pressure gauge. Then start the engine and read the fuel pressure. The procedure is similar for most high-pressure CFI systems, but you'll have to remove the air cleaner to get to the Schrader valve. Then connect the pressure gauge just as we did for the EFI engine. However, low-pressure CFI systems have no Schrader valve. So you'll need this adapter to check the fuel pressure. Start by relieving fuel system pressure as described in the shop manual. Then disconnect the fuel supply line at the throttle body, install the adapter, and connect the pressure gauge. Now you can read the fuel pressure with the engine running. Remember, EFI and high-pressure CFI systems have diagnostic Schrader valves for pressure checking. But low-pressure CFI systems don't have the Schrader valve. You have to disconnect the fuel supply line and connect the pressure gauge with the adapter. Well, that takes care of pressure checks. But the fuel injection system also has to provide enough fuel flow for the engine to run properly under all operating conditions. Therefore, your diagnosis will often include not just a pressure check, but a complete pressure and flow test. The pressure and flow test can help to find fuel system problems such as leaks, blockage, and fuel pump malfunction. For more information on pressure and flow testing, refer to the shop manual and to the video course Non-EQ-Related Drivability Diagnosis Part 2. Now try some practice questions on fuel pressure checks. Now, in some cases, your fuel injection system diagnosis may lead you to suspect that there's something wrong with the injectors themselves. For example, if the vehicle has a symptom like missing or lack of power, and you know that the owner's been using dirty fuel, you'd have good reason to think that one or more of the injectors may be clogged with dirt from the fuel. To find out more about the condition of the injectors, you can use the Rotunda fuel injector tester cleaner to both test the injector's operation and clean the injectors if necessary. Now, before we connect the tester to the vehicle for testing, let's take a few minutes to get familiar with the unit and its attachments. The flow meters display the amount of fuel flow through the injectors. The red discs show the actual flow level, while the colored bars indicate the acceptable flow ranges for different color injectors. To the right of the flow meters is the flow meter selection valve. It selects the correct flow meter for the injectors that are being tested. Above the flow meter selection valve is the injector test switch. When you press this spring-loaded switch, the tester opens, the injector being tested. To choose the injector you wish to test, turn the injector selector switch to the number for the injector you're going to test. The purge switch is used to purge air from the fuel line and injector during injector bench testing. On the lower half of the unit, the fitting just below the flow meters is the fuel supply outlet. From this outlet, fuel flows to the injectors that are being tested. The other fittings on the tester cleaner are the fuel return fittings connected by the return line. This black knob is the fuel regulator. It's used to adjust the fuel pressure supplied by the tester cleaner as described in the operating instructions. Now the last item on this side of the tester cleaner is the manual shutoff valve, right here. When the manual shutoff valve is in the off position, fuel does not recirculate inside the tester cleaner. With the valve in the on position, fuel recirculates with the tester cleaner on. Now you might want to review some of the components we just covered. Press the number for the component you want to review, or press 6 to go on. Moving around the end of the tester cleaner, we see the test harness connector and the power supply line. The fuel injector test harness connects to this connector, while the power supply line connects to the vehicle battery to supply power to the tester cleaner. On the opposite side of the tester cleaner are the fuel tank, the pressure gauge, which displays the pressure supplied by the tester cleaner, and the on-off timer switch and indicator light. The switch turns the tester cleaner on and off and sets the 10-minute timer. The light glows steadily when the unit is on and flashes when the unit is off with power connected. The switch next to the on-off timer switch is the continuous injection switch. It isn't used at all for Ford Motor Company fuel injection systems. Press the number for the component you wish to review, or press 6 to go on. Okay, a number of other pieces of equipment come with the tester cleaner, including injector harnesses, fuel hoses, and so forth. So now let's see how these attachments are used as we go through the procedures. Okay, the first procedure we'll do with the fuel injector tester cleaner is fuel injector testing on the vehicle. Now as we go through the test, keep in mind these two key points. When working with gasoline, no smoking or other open flame or spark is allowed. Also, remember the fuel injection system operates at high pressure. Never disconnect any fuel line or system component without first relieving the pressure, as described in the shop manual. Now, testing the injectors is a long procedure, so we'll break it up into 3 parts. Preparing the tester cleaner, preparing the vehicle, and testing the injectors. So, let's get started. The first step is to make sure that the manual shutoff valve on the tester cleaner is off. Next, add clean, unleaded gasoline to the tester cleaner tank. For this vehicle, we'll use about 6 ounces of gas. Then, connect the power supply line to the vehicle battery. Connect the red clip to the positive terminal and the black clip to the negative terminal. The timer indicator light will flash to show that power is connected, but the tester cleaner is off. Now, turn the unit on with the on-off timer switch and check the pressure gauge. The gauge should read 38 to 40 psi. If it doesn't, adjust the tester cleaner as described in the operating instructions. With the correct reading on the pressure gauge, select the correct fuel supply hose for the vehicle you're working on. Connect the hose to the fuel supply outlet on the tester and put the other end of the hose in the tester fuel tank. Then, turn on the on-off timer switch and turn the flow meter selector valve back and forth several times between flow meter 1 and flow meter 2. This will remove air bubbles from the system. Leave the flow meter selector valve in the correct position for the vehicle you're working on. This car has gray injectors, so we'll use flow meter 1. To complete preparation of the tester cleaner, take the fuel supply hose out of the tester tank, screw the cap snugly on the tank, and back it off 1 turn. Now use the commander to step through a review of preparing the tester cleaner. Press 1 to go on. The tester is ready now, so we'll prepare the vehicle. First, and very important, follow shop manual instructions and relieve the pressure from the fuel injection system. With pressure relieved, disconnect the fuel supply line in the vehicle and connect the fuel supply hose from the tester cleaner. The tester cleaner supplies fuel to the injectors during the test. Then, disconnect the vehicle fuel return line and plug the fuel return fitting at the fuel rail using the plug supplied with the tester cleaner. Then connect the chassis fuel supply and return lines with the U-shaped tube also supplied with the tester cleaner. The next step is to install the turnbuckle loosely between the throttle control lever and a convenient point on the vehicle fender wall. Also, connect a tachometer if the vehicle doesn't have one. Then, turn on the on-off timer switch, start the engine, and check for leaks. After the engine is warm and the idle is stabilized, set the idle speed at 2,000 RPM and run the rest of the 10-minute timer cycle to get all air out of the system. When the tester cleaner timer runs out, turn the timer on again and shut off the engine. Next, install the injector tester harness, matching the harness connector numbers with the vehicle cylinder numbers. Connect the harness to the tester at the white connector on the end of the tester. Now let's go through preparing the vehicle once more. Press 1 on the controller to go on. With both the tester cleaner and the vehicle prepared, we can now test the fuel injectors. To test each injector, turn the injector selector switch to the number for that injector. Press and hold the injector test switch and observe the flow meter. When the float stops within the correct range for the injector being tested, the injector is OK. This car has gray injectors, so the gray bar indicates the correct range. However, if the float is not in the correct range for any one of the injectors, clean the injectors. You may repeat the test up to a maximum of 3 times to confirm the results. When you've finished using the tester cleaner, shut off the engine, then disconnect the tester cleaner in the reverse order of hookup. But we'll leave this tester connected so that we can clean the injectors. When you do disconnect the tester cleaner, though, remember this. Before you disconnect the fuel supply hose or the return plug, release fuel pressure by turning the tester cleaner manual shutoff valve on, like that. Now we'll run through injector testing again. Press 1 on the controller to go on. That completes fuel injector testing on the vehicle. Now, for more information on this and other procedures you can do with the tester cleaner, refer to the operating instructions and to the course reference book. As we said earlier, if any injector doesn't show an acceptable flow rate during testing, the injectors should be cleaned. Since we've already got the tester hooked up, let's clean the injectors on this car. First, make sure the manual shutoff valve on the tester cleaner is on. Next, add clean, unleaded gasoline and cleaner solvent to the tester cleaner tank. The correct ratio is about 7 parts gasoline to 1 part cleaner solvent. For cleaning, use flow meter 2 for all vehicles. Also, since we're still hooked up for testing, we have to disconnect the injector tester harness and reconnect the vehicle wiring harness to the fuel injectors. Now, loosen the turnbuckle, which is also still connected from the test, turn on the tester cleaner timer, Start the engine and check for leaks. Once the engine is warm and the idle is stabilized, set the idle at 2,000 RPM and run the remainder of the 10-minute tester cleaner cycle. At the end of the 10-minute cycle, turn off the engine and discard any of the mixture remaining in the tester tank. Then test the injectors to see how cleaning affected their flow. Flow readings within or slightly above the correct range are okay after cleaning. Time to review injector cleaning. Press 1 on the controller to go on. Well, that completes fuel injector cleaning on the vehicle. We clean the fuel injectors right after testing, which is the way you'll most often do it. If, however, you must connect the tester cleaner to the vehicle before you clean the injectors, the hookup procedure is very similar to the one we did earlier for testing the injectors on the vehicle. This concludes our presentation on fuel injection system diagnosis. If you want to review any of the material we've covered, use the controller and make your selection on the main menu.